Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on my 2014 Silverado. We're going to be changing up the transmission fluid to try and help the torque converter situation that I've mentioned in the last couple videos. In order to do this job, you need two things mainly, and that is a transmission filter for the vehicle that you're working on, and a case of this. This is AC Delco Dextron 6 automatic transmission fluid. I ordered a case of it, so that way I'm positive I'm going to have enough to get the transmission flushed a couple of times at least. A lot of times, you know, these transmissions, these newer transmissions, they can take up to like 10 quarts of oil. And so I ordered these 3 1-gallon jugs. There's about 4 quarts in each gallon. Whenever you flush a transmission, you are not going to flush out all the fluid. That's why Chevy recommends you flush it out multiple times to get as much of the old fluid out as possible. So that's why I went with these. Honestly, I'm probably gonna have to buy more of this. So be prepared to spend a good amount of money on fluid that you're just gonna end up throwing away, which is a real shame. It's just what has to be done. From here, the best thing to do is we're gonna get the truck jacked up. We're going to kind of have to finagle with the exhaust a little bit because it's in the way apparently. And we're gonna get the transmission pan unbolted. But first, a really important thing that I need to check. This is gonna be live. We're not even gonna do a cut here. Is if one of my funnels will fit in the transmission dipstick tube, because this is how I'm going to be primarily, you know, filling the transmission. So let's see. Good Lord, at the length. I wish I had that much length. So my skinny one here looks like it's gonna work. Oh yeah, no problem. So we'll be able to get the fluid poured in there fine after we dump all the old stuff out. So that works. So get you guys a long skinny funnel that comes to a nice fine point. Okay, so now that we got the truck safely up off the ground, I've got the rear wheels chalked, I've got the emergency brake on. Safety when working under any vehicle is my #1 concern, but especially with this beast, because you know, this may sound stupid, but working under the RSX, it doesn't scare me nearly as much, and that's simply just because, not because I'm afraid of the car falling on me. It's not like I could lift that thing up if I needed to, but I've worked under it a lot. I know exactly how to lift it up. This thing, it's a little bit more of a handful, so just want to be doubly safe and making sure that this thing isn't going to hurt me, especially when I'm working on it alone. But with that being said, got it jacked up nice and safe, so we're going to dive under there and start breaking the bolts loose on the transmission pan. Are we looking at metric, or are we really going to do standard today? Absolute fail. It is not a 1/2 inch. Oh my goodness, is it metric? Is it an American made truck and it's metric? If it's not a 7/16, I was close. I don't do standard very much, but I was very close. Oh my God, it's metric. You've got to be joking. Oh my God, is it a 10? It's a freaking 10. Well, they're not on there very tight, which is, I mean, I guess that's good. And it's not leaking. Hasn't ever leaked on me or anything crazy. And they are all broken loose, which it didn't take much to do that at all. So now our biggest concern is going to be this section of the exhaust. I am told that you cannot get the pan all the way off with the exhaust in this position. Instead of taking the whole thing off, because that would just be a total pain, we would have to take off probably most of this. It has some flex pipes down there. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pull the exhaust downwards just enough to be able to snake this thing through here and kind of dodge the filter. I believe the filter is what is actually in our way. Oh, cool. We'll just let that do its thing. It does not look fantastic. I mean, it's old. Could be worse. I've seen worse. Didn't mean to splatter you guys. Definitely not intentional. So let's see if that information I got was true. So far it's looking like that information was factual. What in the world is holding it up? It's just, I'm not sure what it is, but it's nothing major. I can clear this side. It's just something ever so slightly on that side. I don't know what in the world. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna reinstall a couple of bolts to hold up the pan again. Being as fair as possible, I definitely prefer doing this than having to remove a vast majority of the exhaust. That just caused a whole lot of extra problems and you know, probably replacement parts like gaskets and things like that. But Chevy, you couldn't have made the exhaust just a little bit thinner right there. If I ever for any reason take the exhaust off, I'm gonna dent it in right there so I can get this thing off easier the next time, which hopefully there won't ever be a next time for me, but you never know. So if you guys can see right here, here's a brace, here's a brace, here's a 2x4. Everyone's got one of those laying around. So we're just going to put the 2x4 across here, kind of do a little dance of slipping the ratchet strap in above the exhaust and coming down, and hopefully we'll be able to make sweet magic happen here. Okay, gloves are back on because the oil is still pretty warm. Once we get the pan off, we're going to drain all the oil out of it completely, and then we're going to be swapping out the filter. Now, the filter has a seal on it, or rather the transmission has the seal installed inside of it. So just for reference, for a 2014 Chevy Silverado with a 5.3 and a 6L80 transmission that's also four-wheel drive, that is the part number you will need for your transmission filter. What comes in the box? The filter itself and this guy. So this guy goes just like this up into the transmission, just like this. This guy you will push up into the trans, and it will create a seal around there that the fluid comes in, gets filtered, and then flows out the bottom. Now, here's the thing. If you pull the old one out, don't go ahead and rip the old seal out. If you try to install this, which you might as well just go ahead and try, and it fits up in there nice and snug, I would not replace this just yet. Simply because if we're going to be swapping the fluid out, you know, 3 to 4 times before I go and try and install a torque converter, there's no point in replacing this if it's still sealing. You can replace this part when you're done, like at the very last time, like on fluid change number 3 or 4, go ahead and pop that old one out just for safety reasons. Throw this one in there. Make sure it's got a good tight seal. When you press it up inside the trans, you won't have any issues. Okay, so assuming the ratchet strap trick worked, which looked like it did, we should be able to pull that bad boy the rest of the way out of here. Come on, there we go. What a stubborn ass. Okay, so this is not good. So the fluid itself, it's pretty dark. It's not looking too healthy. But if you bring your attention over here, yeah, that's metal, or at least it's some type of material that definitely should not be in the transmission. I don't know if it's friction material or what it is, but it's definitely not good. Like, you see that? You see all that? Yeah, that's not great. So this right here is the reason why you want to make sure that you flush this transmission fluid several times over, because you don't want any of this to stay inside the transmission. It's just simply not good for it. So with that being said, let's pour the rest of this out, give the pan a really good clean, and get the old filter pulled out. Let's take a look at the filter. I definitely definitely will not be replacing the seal, because this thing was a pain in the butt to get off. Now that may just be simply because it's probably the only one that's ever been on the truck. Pouring out all of the fluid that's inside of the filter, this thing is absolutely filled with just metal chunks or chunks of friction material. I honestly couldn't tell you, but it's just painted in it. Camera may be hard for it to pick up, but it's all in there in these cracks and crevices. And I mean, if you can see inside of there, inside the filter area, it's just chock full. Moving on to the pan. I'm going to tilt you guys down. Moving on to the pan. I am going to be reusing the gasket. There's nothing wrong with this one. It wasn't leaking before, and I don't think it's going to leak after. But even if it does start leaking, I've got a new one on the way. But for now, we are going to reuse this gasket. So we're going to clean it up, reuse it. I think it's going to be fine. Now, this is honestly just sad. I really don't know another word. Like, this is just horrible. I mean, I really wish that I would have caught this sooner. I don't think we're going to have to put a new transmission in this thing, but that's just me being hopeful. If that has to happen, I don't know what we're going to do. But you see here, this is a magnet that's inside of the pan itself to catch any metal shavings, which is what makes me think that maybe this isn't metal. This is just like friction material. Hopefully most of it is in the pan. But all of that is metal. That is horrible. It's totally normal for a transmission to create metal shavings like this, but it's just, man, it's just so disgusting. I mean, look at the way it changes the color. Like, that's all the nasty right there. Let's get this thing cleaned up super good, and then we'll keep moving forward with the fluid change. I'm really thinking that the fluid change is going to help a ton. Or at least I'm hopeful that the fluid change is going to help a ton. Got the magnet perfectly clean. There ain't a bit of metal left on it. It was a combination of washing it with Dawn dish soap, using another magnet that was stronger than this magnet to get all the other particles off, and using the air compressor to blast it with air to shoot off anything else that was still on there after the fact. Real quick though, I just wanted to show you guys the state of the pan. The pan itself is pretty clean. You see all these particles down there? Yeah, that's just stuff that came off the magnet. And it is pretty much permanently stuck to my hands. Go me. This is exactly when a lift would come in handy and make this job a hell of a lot easier. We do not have such luxuries. That is the hole where the filter goes. Sorry, the lighting is just horrid, but this is the best we got right now. Oh yeah, that's in. That is in. Just press it firmly up, and it's held in pretty good. So I'm gonna say that that seal is still probably a-okay. And the wife is home. All right, let's clean up that gasket and get this all put back together. All right, so that's our pan situation. If I do say so myself, I think it's perfect. I got the gasket dried off. It's still a little wet, which I think is good. I don't think you should ever install a gasket dry. I think just a light layer of oil is fine. But this thing is totally clean. I hand washed it, got all the particles off of the magnet. So last thing we gotta do, slap it on the truck. So now I just got to figure out the trick on how this goes in there. Probably comes at this angle. So here we are at the final stage of our job here. Honestly, not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. The exhaust being in the way is still, in my opinion, a hideous oversight. I genuinely feel like that they could have done something different with that to make this simpler. Overall, an easy job, and I'm really glad that we got it done because all those metal shavings kind of freaked me out. So I'm just going to throw all 4 of this in there and see where we're at. Just take your time overall, because it's not like trying to take fluid out of your engine. If you put too much in there, you just pop the drain plug a little bit. You guys saw the process of getting the fluid out of the transmission. So I'll just leave it at that. All right, that's good for now. I'm gonna save these jugs. They're really great for storing the used stuff and taking it to have it properly recycled. And yes, there is a whole heck of a lot on the dipstick. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to start the truck up and probably going to drive it around a little bit and get this thing up to temp around that 80-degree mark, and then add as we need to. All right, let's see if this thing will go into reverse for us. Seems to have. Parking brake. So now all the old fluid that was sitting inside of the torque converter is getting ran through, and all that new fluid is going into it. Oh, will we miss the tree? Just barely. All right, we're going to take this thing around the block and see how it does, just to warm the trans up. We're not going to be driving it super duper hard because we still have to put a couple more quarts of fluid in there. All right, let's check that fluid level. Okay, so we're right in there on the cold mark. So we're going to drive it around a little bit more and get it all the way up to operating temperature, then come back and check it again. So look what just came in the mail. That is the gasket that I'm going to use whenever we put in a new torque converter, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do at some point. I hate that just because of how time consuming it's going to be. So time is a hard commodity to come by, and as painstakingly as it's going to be, it's, you know, we'll get it done, and you know, the truck's going to run great, and hopefully for a long time after that. We're going to check the oil one last time. Went out for a good long drive. I've let it sit for just a minute to let the oil settle. And as far as I'm concerned, that's just about perfect. It looks like it's a little bit overfilled, just a touch, but I'm not concerned about that at all, especially considering how I'm going to be flushing this transmission fluid back out in a few days anyway. So my advice, use a whole one of these, but then only about a quart out of another one. So I think all in all, you can get away with buying 4 full jugs and then flushing it 3 times, using 1 quart out of 1 jug each time for each reflush. Then for your last one, pour in, you know, your 5-ish quarts. That's about where I'm at. I had to pour in about 5.5 quarts. So with that being said, as far as the drive goes, I didn't really film it or anything, but this is just me. I don't think it helped. I I would have to drive it a little bit longer, honestly. I only drove it for about, 20 minutes. And I didn't really go out on any like super straight roads. But with that being said, it did act better. It definitely acted and drove a little bit better. So is it worth doing it? Absolutely. If nothing else, just to protect the transmission. Get fresh fluid in there, get all that old crap out, and just to make the transmission last longer, make the torque converter a little bit happier. That is how you flush your transmission. I'm going to do it a couple more times over the coming weeks. When I'm able to get a torque converter in here, we're going to throw that in. Thank you very much for tuning into the channel. I really appreciate it. I hope you got some help out of it. And if you did, please, please, please subscribe. My numbers are still going up, even though 2020 has been a heck of a year. I'm really happy that the numbers are still going up and people are still getting help and entertainment out of my videos. Share the video with your dog, tip your waitresses, eat your vegetables, and have a good night.